Call Commissioner,
Wait
should we
for
call
Rod.
Commissioner
Well-
Henschel to order too?
All right.
Get on over here.
Welcome, everyone. This is the regular monthly meeting, December 14th, 2011, of the Resource Management and Administration Committee of the Grand Traverse County Commission. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if the clerk would call the roll.
Commissioner Gilman.
Here.
Inman.
Here.
Henschel.
Yes.
Lemkool.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yep.
Maxbauer.
Here.
Fleece.
Present.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Richardson.
Here. And our first item of business is the approval of the minutes from November 9th, 2011.
Move for approval as presented.
Support. Okay. Motion support. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
You have a set of,
And we need to also approve the closed session minutes from the same night. Motion by Thomas, support by Gilman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Shall we pass them to the clerk?
Please.
Yours is still down in here.
Brings us to our
It
first
says we
public
opened and we
comment,
closed. That's
and
what
if
all
the
it
clerk
says.
would read the rules, please.
any person shall be permitted to address the meeting of the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provisions of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. 1. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. 2. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may at his or her discretion extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Is anyone wishing to make public comment, just step up to the table and identify yourself and have at it. Okay, seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Next item of business is the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
A motion by Wheelock, support by Lemkool.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would note is there is a corrected page 91 that Dennis had distributed in regard to the appointments to Brownfield Redevelopment Authority.
Right. We have a name substitution there, so, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And motion carries. Okay, that brings us to special orders of business, and our first item is a public hearing on the First Amendment to Grand Traverse County Ordinance Number 17, which is our solid waste ordinance. And Mr. Osterhout?
Bob Ostat, Resource Recovery Manager. The purpose of tonight's public hearing is to take public comments on a proposed amendment to Ordinance 17. As you remember, earlier in the year, the Board of Commissioners approved moving the Resource Recovery Council and Department from the Board of Public Works back under the Board of Commissioners. The amendment to Ordinance 17 is needed to make this happen, and also to meet the start date of January 1st, 2012.
Okay. Any questions by anyone for Mr. Osterhout?
Did you open the public hearing? Yeah.
In that case, we will now open the public hearing. Is to comment on the changes in County Ordinance Number 17. Okay, seeing no one interested, we will now close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would note that this is the first amendment to Ordinance 17. You will see a second amendment to Ordinance 17, which is basically a rewrite of that. But the first piece had to be done because of the time constraints within the current ordinance requires 45 days of public input time and such. We weren't able to finish Ordinance 17, just complete rewrite in time to get that to you and be able to be in place by January 1. You will see that soon, I hope. I missed last Thursday's meeting, so I can't tell you exactly where that went to last week. But we truly are working very hard to rewrite ordinance 17 cover to cover, very similar to what we did with the solid waste plan. And it's much more readable.
Dennis, do we need to take a vote on this now, then?
No, sir.
This is just the public hearing?
Yes,
Okay.
correct?
All right, then that will bring us to,
Excuse me, I think Bob wants to make one
I'm sorry,
comment.
go ahead, Bob.
Just to let you know, the 40-day comment period on this ends December 21 next week, and it will be coming back to this board on December 28 for final consideration. So that's the process.
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
And because this is an ordinance amendment, it does not have to go out to the townships. The plan amendment has to go to all townships to be passed for by 66%. The ordinance amendment is done by this board.
Okay, that brings us to the next special order of business, which is the introduction of Trinan Sturman, who is the new Executive Director of the Grand Traverse County Conservation District.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just would like to welcome Trinan. He's been an excellent addition. He's taken Luke Coulter's place there at the Conservation District, and we just wanted to have the opportunity for everybody to get to meet him and to kind of get an idea of where he came from and who he is. So, Tree, it's yours.
Thank you, Herb. So I've been working in service of conservation my whole life, and this journey has taken me to some of the most beautiful places in this country, including right here in Traverse City. I grew up in the lower Hudson River Valley, went to college on the coast of Bar Harbor, Maine, lived in Chicago, Illinois, and central Vermont, and here in Traverse City I really look forward to setting down roots and making a home. So as you mentioned, Herb, I'm taking over the enormous shoes of Lou Coulter, who has just made a tremendous impact to this community, and I'm honored to be filling his position. So Lou and I share a passion for conservation, and also, I think you'd appreciate, a passion for frugality. We have a saying in New England, use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without.
Yeah.
So I'm committed to using every dollar that comes into the district with that same spirit. So I'm also excited to lead the district into the future, and I think there's some tremendous potential for the Conservation District. In the short month that I've been here, I've come to describe the district as an organization that cares for the people and places that make our region great. Our schools and families, our farmers, the Boardman River, and those treasured natural landscapes that we care for, and that probably is the reason why many people live and work and visit here. So I think the Grand Traverse Conservation District is a critical component not just of our natural environment, but also of our culture and our economy. And I really look forward to highlighting the district in that light. So Lou Coulter has gifted me with an exceptional staff, an exceptional board, and core of volunteers and supporters. And I believe he's also gifted me with the respect and appreciation of this board, which I intend to honor and fulfill and build on over the years. So I really appreciate your time and attention and the opportunity to introduce myself, and thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? I'm sure you'd be glad to answer any questions. He gave a nice presentation to our board meeting the other night, and he's got some great ideas, and we're really excited about some of the direction that he thinks that the conservation should be going. And in future meetings, we will be bringing him here to make some of those presentations and talk about some of his plans and where he's going to be going. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, which now brings us to the consent calendar.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. 1, Commission on Aging monthly program reports and board self-evaluation. 2, Community Corrections Report for October. 3, Veteran Services Monthly Activity for October. 4, Review of Health Department Environmental and Personal Health Fees. 5, Road Commission Monthly Report. 6, Housing Liaison Report. Grand Traverse Conservation District Staff Report for November 2011. 8, CPR AED Training Summary for Grand Traverse County employees. Approval. 1, Medical Directive Services Agreement with Benzie and Leelanau District Health Department. 2, Non-Community Water Agreement. 3, Consideration of 2012 Employee Training Day Event. Martin Luther King, January 16, 2012. 4, appointment recommendations from ad hoc committees. A, Commission on Aging, Human Services Board, Airport Commission, Northern Michigan Substance Abuse Services, Data Board, and Veterans Affairs Administrative Committee. B, Parks and Recreation Committee, Resource Recovery Council, Board of Public Works, and an Inspection Appeals Board. C, Traverse Area District Library, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, Economic Development Corporation, Planning Commission, Farmland Preservation Board, Workforce Development Board. 5, recommendation for community corrections appointments.
Okay. Is there any member of the public who wishes any item on the consent calendar removed for further discussion? Okay, seeing none, is there, going back to the board, is there any member of the board who wishes to remove any item? Yes.
Item B4B, please.
Say that again? Oh,
B4B.
B4B, okay. Anyone else? Yes?
Item B3, please.
And item B3.
Which one did you?
B3.
B3.
You said
B3.
Martin Luther King Training Day.
Yep. I guess I would do A8.
A8?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, anything else? I could have a motion then?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the consent calendar with the exception of items A8, B3, and B4B.
Support. Okay, support by, motion by Wheelock, support by Fleece. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, by roll call, please.
Commissioner Inman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Lemko?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Axbauer?
Yes, thank you.
Fleece?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Gilman?
Yes.
Chairman Richardson?
Yes. Okay. Okay, so we'll now turn then to the items that were removed from the consent calendar, starting with item A8. Mr. Inman?
Yes, regarding the training, I believe that was the last Martin Luther King training. They had the training on the, or that was a supplemental thing that I had asked for. That was a special, remember I asked if everyone was prepared, and
I
you said,
remember.
no, we need to do a supplemental training. Was that the preparation of this memo to let us
Yeah.
know that?
Yeah, just to let
Okay.
it know it's completed.
All right, so we had completed that whole process, including the sheriff deputies, or are they already certified, so you just did the regular employees?
Correct.
But it's important to note, as the letter indicates from Jen, a total of 20 employees were completed the training. So the idea was we have a couple on each floor of each building.
Beautiful.
Who now know how to do this.
So do we have one now in this building? Have we purchased an AED for this building?
We've not purchased.
I thought your plan was to do that. at least
No,
one.
we brought back to the board, Sue Cork and I came, and the AEDs were fairly expensive, and the upkeep and things like that.
Right.
So part of her recommendation with her nursing background was that if we had employees that were trained in CPR and first aid, because we have AEDs available nearby buildings in sheriff's department cars, that if they could do the CPR and first aid, or CPR, that it would be suffice until an AED arrived. So that was why we went with, and then subsequently did the training, so that way we had people in all the facilities that were trained in CPR.
So Jen,
So-
how many buildings did we determine did not have an AED? This building, do you remember?
Maybe I should do the ones where we have one. We have one at the Civic Center, we have one at the Health Department, we have one at the Senior Center. We don't have one here.
Jail,
The jail has one.
sheriff through the cars.
The sheriff has them in the cars,
You
I
guys
believe.
So I think the two court buildings, this building, public service, so there were about 4 or 5 buildings that we did not have them. They're around $2,000 to $2,500.
Did we verify the cost on that?
Yeah, I have all that, I just.
Yeah, I was just,
I bring it
I
with
had
me.
thought that, that we were at that point in time, we were open to discussion about, after we get everyone trained, then, and then once we just, then we maybe got back some information about the cost of them. Because they got to be all new technology by now, you know. We bought them like 12, 15 years ago for the police cars, and the batteries probably were different, and they're probably, maybe the whole thing's less expensive and more efficient. I mean, I don't know with technology today.
My recollection, Commissioner, was they were around $2,000 apiece.
They are.
And you are right, the board did seem open to talking about that, but you made no decision about that. Your first focus was on training the employees, so that's what we did.
Okay.
And if you recall, the AEDs, and I think people will back this up, the AEDs are so simple to use, the directions are so simple, the CPR training is really not necessary in order to use those. They're very simple to use. It's kind of a separate issue from the CPR training, but yeah, it would, if the board is interested, other than the cost of about $500 every couple of years to change each battery, you know, the board could make a decision they wanted to put those in the buildings, but you have not done that yet.
Yeah, I would just add, since that particular question is not on the agenda, I'll just follow up with administration, and I would like to put that on an agenda for a future meeting and have a discussion with the board about the possibility of having an AED at this building, and perhaps if, by the pleasure of the board, if they want to go in that direction, maybe consider, you know, another building.
We'll try to put something on for Ways and Means next week.
Yeah, I'd probably just want to make that
We'll look at the
request.
buildings that don't have one, we'll have the actual cost for you, and we'll have that for you next
Then
week.
we could just have that discussion. Okay.
Herb?
Okay,
Can
fine.
we take that out of our emergency fund for this year if we put it on there? Can we?
If you decided to do it, we could take it out of the contingency
Contingency
fund.
fund.
It would be a matter of earmarking it. Dean would have to, you know, determine the best way to do that.
So,
But-
because I think if you're going to talk about it, you need to talk about where you're going to fund it from.
Right. Okay.
I remember there was something in the paper about AEDs and the sheriff's cars, and apparently, you know, some are generally just kind of sitting in the parking lot in the car. Do you recall what the sheriff said? He has basically sitting dormant at any time?
Well, I think I didn't read the whole article, but from what I understand, he has anywhere from 8 to 15 at any time on the road. The other cars are at people's homes, or in the parking lot if they're not being used or not out on the road at the time, yeah. Each car has one, yep.
Okay. Well, I guess the reason I ask that is I noticed in our statutory finance committee, and when we go through all the bills, I noticed that for this training, we rented 3 of them. I think it was around $121. It struck me.
No, there's a
Is there?
different technology for trainers,
Okay.
because the trainer has the capability of, the person that's operating the training can select whether the patient's in fibrillation or whether they have a normal sinus rhythm or whether they're breathing, and then the person that's being trained has to recognize there is a difference. The problem isn't, you know, we don't want to be shocking people that don't need to be shocked.
Yeah.
And the trainer gives you the opportunity to evaluate that.
Okay, so it's
Make sure
a
that the
special
operator's
unit. with
And it's a
rental.
different unit
Yes.
than we have.
Good to know.
located in the
Thank you.
building. But that was a good question.
Been there, done that.
Okay.
Really?
All right, I'm done with that issue, and if we can get that on Ways and Means, I'd be happy with that.
Okay, do you want to make a motion to receive and file what new?
Yeah, I would make a motion that we receive and file item number 8.
Second.
Okay. A motion by
A8.
Inman, seconded by Henschel. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay, next item is Commissioner Henschel.
Yeah, the Martin Luther King Jr. Training Day. I had a series of emails with Jen, which she was very gracious with providing prompt information. I appreciate that, Jen.
Welcome.
The list of topics struck me, and when I started looking at the cost of this training day, I think we ended up, when we really broke it down, it was about $29,000, give or take a few dollars. Is that roughly where we ended up, Jen? Do you remember?
I don't.
About 200 employees for 4 hours. And the topics, you know, understanding prescription drug abuse, making sense of food labels, fitness for weight loss, managing stress and burnout, cultural diversity in the workplace, Social Security, pre-retirement planning, and the art of giving great customer service. Now, a couple of those struck me as probably good for several employees, but for a blanket training across all employees didn't seem to me to be an effective use of taxpayers' dollars. Several of these topics may be beneficial, but in my view, don't seem to have a direct benefit to the taxpayer for a $29,000 expenditure. And so I guess I disagree with sending the employees to this particular curriculum.
Commissioner Inman?
I guess I have two questions. One is, we've been doing this training, and we just happened to pick Martin Luther King Day because it was a day that we would normally have off, and we decided that it's very difficult in a county operation to provide ongoing training, and that was a day to provide an option for employees to come in. And we've had pretty good success in terms of different subject matters and attendance. And I think the morning session has been a general kind of a overview of a topic that a group of people believe is important to cover. And then there are breakout sessions during the afternoon, or they can go back to their own departments and have individual training, those kinds of things. So the $29,000 is just basically the cost of the rooms and whatever their normal wage scale is for paying them for the day. That would include their benefit costs for one day and their
Half a day.
Half a day or whatever it'd be. So that's what we're really talking about, isn't it? It's just they would just
Correct.
we would just maintain the same system of they would just get paid for the day and the cost of the room.
Correct. The $2,000 is what's budgeted for the event.
Okay.
So for approximately 200 people. The training day that is put on for the general group, it do have general topics. Last year we did do overview of AEDs and that types of information, because it is a variety of people that go to the training session, from Commission on Aging to Finance to Human Resources to IT. We have to come up with something that's, across those representations of employees. And then some departments choose not to go to that, and they will have their own training session. So they might have a specific training session that's relative to their department instead of coming to that general training session in the morning. And then everyone's dismissed around, this year it's 11:45, whether it's 11:45 or noon, and then they are to go back to their departments in the afternoon. There might be more training, or there might be catch-up day for the staff. It's up to the department head for that afternoon. So,
Just to follow up, and I guess it's just true confessions in a public manner, I guess. I would be probably considered a candidate for this kind of training because of my family history and the medications that I'm on for cholesterol and glucose. And in fact, I was required by our insurance company to attend a session on the different kinds of food and how to read, it was an abbreviated training on what to look for on labels that cause triglycerides to go up and glucose levels to go up, and alternatives to look at that you might want to look at if you have a kind of a taste for different foods and stuff. So so it was a real, and part of the training was understanding what those things do to affect your blood level indicators that are concerns at your annual review, your annual examinations at your doctor's office. I don't want to get too personal on this, but I learned a lot at that training about what I should be avoiding eating, what I should be eating, and things to look at labels that I should be just looking at and go ugh, and then drop it. But if we have this whole thrust towards wellness and healthiness and eating healthy foods and those kinds of things, I guess on the surface I can see that if people are in the same boat I am, taking the same medications I am, there would be something to be gained with that type of training. And if they don't have those kind of physical issues, then they could just go to another training or do their own, choose to do another training or whatever. I mean, I don't know, but but it's hard. I would think it would be hard from the administrative perspective to say what training, I mean, I don't know if you do any surveys from employees and say, what kind of training are you looking for? I mean, that might be helpful, but, you know, I think it's kind of hard picking the topics. You're just taking a best guess at it. Is that what you're trying to do?
Well, this year we partnered with the city of Traverse City and
Okay.
TCAPS. So this year's event is put on by all three
Oh, I see.
entities, and it's actually at the West Middle School, or excuse me, high school. And so the group of us had to come up with, some relevant topics. And to be honest, I think that they are very relevant to what's going on. We're seeing healthcare costs increase. We're going there. If we can educate employees now on that, it can save us a penny here, a penny there. I think it's worth it. That's, you know, my opinion and the group's opinion as well. Customer service, we thought that touched kind of everybody and what they were, no matter what their role is, if they're in customer service with the schools or they're in the city or the county. So that's where we were headed for this year, and wanted to work together on something like that. So that's what this year's event is really about.
Okay, all right.
Commissioner Lemko?
Have you invited the Conservation District? I mean, they're really not part of us, but they are, to this particular program. I'm wondering if some of our other agencies that we're really tightly connected with, whether or not they've been aware of or invited to, or whether we can open the door to them or not?
This has strictly been to Grand Traverse County employees
Sure, I
in the
understand.
past,
Yeah.
to my knowledge.
So, but just a thought. But I'd like to make a motion to approve the Martin Luther King, or the training day for January 16th.
Okay.
Support.
And motion by Lemko, support by Inman. Any further discussion? Commissioner Matheson?
I've attended, I think, every Martin Luther King training day that we've had, and if I at all possibly, if this passes, I will attend this one as well. Quite honestly, I don't think they've been all that beneficial. I truly believe, and the reason I'm not going to support this motion, I truly believe that I think training geared for each individual department by that department head is really the way to go. You know, I appreciate the fact, Jen, that you went out and you're partnering with TCAPS in the city. You know, I think that's great. But based upon my personal experience with Martin Luther King Training Day, I just think department heads gearing the training towards their specific department is the way to go.
Commissioner Henschel?
Jen, there's no doubt in my mind that, you know, like I said, these are probably beneficial and may help some people with a personal issue. Do we have any statistics about these specific trainings as to what they do with healthcare costs? Is there any numbers that, you know, taking a nutrition label reading class lowers healthcare costs, or, you know, any numbers at all?
I doubt it. I don't personally. I mean, I could ask them for them, but a lot of the wellness stuff isn't measurable, unfortunately, because you're preventing something from occurring. So that's just historically with any wellness event or anything that goes on in the wellness area. But, I mean, I could see if they have something, but I don't.
Well, it seems like, you know, groups, employers that offer training versus those that don't in a specific given industry, whether it be government or manufacturing, should be able to measure, you know, if you don't have this training, you have X percentage higher healthcare costs, or maybe there's no difference at all. I guess my feeling is without, you know, some kind of evidence, I don't feel like taking stabs in the dark with taxpayer money. I would just rather not do a training for, you know, with the cost of $29,000, sounds like quite a bit of money to just take a stab in the dark with.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I guess I just have one question point. You know, on national holidays when we're closed, their employees are paid anyways. I mean, there's not.
Correct. The employees, it's not a holiday for Grand Traverse County. So the employees will be working.
Yeah, I mean, but the fact that, you know, we might be closed one day for, you know, for a President's Day or, you know, whatever national holiday or whatever, I mean, the employees are still paid.
Correct.
Yeah, they're paid
President's
on
Day happens to be
salary,
one of our holidays,
or
though, but.
whatever, you know, or whatever.
Correct. They would be paid on that Monday. They're going to be paid no matter if they're in training or if they're
sitting at home.
working. Huh?
No, because the.
No, we
office
wouldn't
would be
send
open.
them home.
Oh, yeah, the office would be open.
Or the office may be closed and they might be in training with their department, as Commissioner Maxbauer, you know, suggested for possibly future. Yeah.
Okay.
Depending on what.
Commissioner Wheeler?
You know, when this started a number of years ago, you know, there was a lot of discussion about a need for some general training. And I think every year it becomes harder and harder for us to determine what is the needed general training. You know, but one thing that we also have to remember is that we've had quite a bit of employee turnover in the last 9 years. So, you know, we may want to go back and look and see what some of that general training that we did back 8 or 9 years ago was, you know. But I know every year it becomes very complicated and very difficult to determine what is the appropriate training to give. And, you know, I know Jen does a good job about, you know, asking departments what would you like to have, and you know, this is the list that they came up with for this year. You know, I didn't create the list. You know, whether I completely would have chosen these items or not doesn't really matter. This was the list that was come up with by the departments, and, you know, if we believe that there is a value in having this kind of training for our employees, then we support the motion. If we don't think that this type of training is necessary to be provided by the county, we don't support the motion.
Mr. Lundquist?
Yeah, you know, I think that I have a problem with some of the discussion, because one of the issues that we really just struggle with here as our county commissioners, we're setting policy. And our policy is that should we have training on the 16th of January? And then it's up to our personnel organization to sit and figure out what kind of programs they should implement and what they should do.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to sit here and question the type of programs. I do commend you for doing the 3 organizations, bringing the people together. You're going to see a lot more collaboration and cooperation by bringing those organizations together. This is exciting to me to see this kind of thing happening for our community and for our employees. They're all going to share information back and forth from each of their individual departments. That's the beauty of this.
Mr. Gilman?
I think it's important that we do say by our vote whether we agree with the type of training or not. I mean, if we just give carte blanche, you know, without any input, she's never going to know what we're thinking. So I think the discussion is completely appropriate.
Commissioner Fleece?
How many people will be attending this training from the 3 entities?
600 people.
600?
It's approximate 600 people.
And last year, when we didn't have that?
It was 200 county employees at the Civic Center, just over 200 last year. I think we had like 215. This year we're estimating 600 total, 300 from TCAPS, 200 from the county, and 100 from the city.
I just wonder what the impact of the added students on any given topic. You know, if you go into a high school, they try to limit the classroom size to 24, 26.
We have them all. The classroom sizes are limited. The customer service training is in a larger venue. The Social Security is in another similar, like, probably about 100 people fit in that. We have it, they're in different size classrooms. They are in different size classrooms.
What's the largest class?
I want to say 300. Is that the auditorium?
And remember, each one of these programs is offered twice.
Yeah.
Once at 8 o'clock and once at 10.
Correct, yeah. So there's 2 sessions. I believe I think either 300 or 350 fit in the auditorium. So it would be packed for if half the employees went to that, and then half the employees go to that same customer service training the next session. But they're all in different, they range from the auditorium, room A 108/109. We have combined 2 rooms, room B 102, 103. We have them rotating around to different rooms. So some are as small as 60 people, some are as large as 300, 350.
Well, Herb, I agree with your philosophy. It's the board's just duty to set the policy. But it's also, in my opinion, our duty to see what the curriculum is. I would be rather upset if we had hula dancing in there or something like that. You know, so for the commissioners that are looking at the topics, a couple of them I would question myself, but I think that's something we need to do.
All right. Everybody understand the motion then? And by roll call, please.
Commissioner Henschel.
No.
Lemko.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yep.
Max Bauer.
No.
Fleece.
Yes.
Wheelock.
Yes.
Gilman.
No.
Inman.
Yes.
Chairman Richardson. Yes, motion carries 6-3. Okay, and then our last consent calendar item, Commissioner Max Bauer.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I pulled this because I am opposed to the recommendation of the ad hoc committee regarding the Parks and Rec Commission. Presently, we have a Parks Commissioner, Harry Leapside, and I served last year as Chair of Parks and Rec. And I had a devil of a time getting a Rules Committee together to look at consistent rules for our parks, because the commissioners that were on the Rules Committee were missing meetings, and I could never get a quorum. So I asked Mr. Leapside if he would serve on the Parks Rules Committee without being a member of the Parks Board, and he agreed, and the Parks Board confirmed him. And he has served on the Parks Rules Committee for a year. We, on the Parks Commission, had a representative of T-Base, a liaison, in order to improve communications. The original Parks Commissioner attended one T-Base meeting. Commissioner Leapside volunteered, and last night spent, after receiving his letter saying that he is not recommended for reappointment, spent 3.5 hours at a T-Base meeting. Improving relations. They were extremely pleased to have him there. He is a retired U.S. Army Command Sergeant Major, highest obtainable rank by an enlisted person in the United States Army. It is as rare as a 4-star general. He attended MIT and received his bachelor's and master's in electrical engineering. From MIT, it's the #1 school for science and technology. He is also a master electrician. He's worked for the Michigan Department of Natural Resources in the Parks Department. He taught at West Point. He taught at Michigan State. We had speaking of the Nature Education Reserve, we had an education presentation for Parks Commissioners given by Lou Coulter. Only 2 Parks Commissioners attended. Commissioner Leapside was one of them. When we were questioning applicants, there were some applicants, when asked if they visited the parks, couldn't name a park. Commissioner Leapside has visited all 13 parks and does so regularly. He's a lifelong learner. He just received his PhD this year, so he is now Dr. Leapside. He has served a president, granted it was a Republican administration, in the White House. And if these recommendations as presented go through, we are going to have 4 new Parks Commissioners as it stands right now next year, possibly 5. Road Commissioner Taylor called me this afternoon and told me that the new representative for the Road Commission will be Carl Brown, and Carl's looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to having him. For all those reasons, I do not support this recommendation. I do, however, wish to make a motion to appoint Rhodetta Herond to the Parks Commission in accordance with the ad hoc committee's recommendation for the remainder of the 3-year term ending December 31st, 2012.
Support.
So that's a motion?
For Rhodetta Herond, yes.
That's a motion, but, I mean, the whole point of this is that we have a whole, how are you going to deal with the rest of them?
We have to deal with those
Someone will
after,
make a motion, I'm sure.
after this motion.
All right, that's fair.
Okay, and for those of you who may not have read the entire packet, Rhodetta Herond that is the recommendation that came out of the ad hoc, was that Rhodetta Herond be appointed to the partial term on that. So, any discussion on this
Well, I guess my question is, now, are we going to handle each of these appointments individually then? Is that what you're asking to do?
I would, my suggestion would be that somebody, after we vote on this motion, then somebody make a motion for the
Well,
rest of
because
it.
this same agenda item include appointments to Resource Recovery Council, the Board of Public Works, the Inspections Appeal Board, and the Board of Appeals for variances. You know, they were all in that same recommendation, but she's picked out one individual of the, 15 people that are being appointed by the recommendation that come out of the committee.
My suggestion, Commissioner Wheelock, is that after we vote on this particular motion, that maybe you would like to make a motion to adopt, the rest of the recommendations from the ad hocs, or excuse me, from ad hoc committee number 2. But any further discussion on this motion? Okay. I'm sorry, Commissioner
My
Thomas.
suggestion is to take one of the two on the top line and eliminate them by motion, if that's what she wants to do, but.
Well, we have a
What do you
motion.
wanna
We have a
do?
motion. We have a motion
on
and
the
a
floor.
second.
Let's vote on the motion.
handle that.
Unless the motioner chooses to withdraw the motion, we have a motion and a second, so we're going to vote on that right now, okay?
Okay.
That's fine.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Quinlan.
I'd actually like to amend that motion to include the Resource Recovery Council recommendations and the Board of Public Work recommendations and the Inspections Appeals Board recommendations as listed on page 90. And that would leave out the Parks and Recreation completely for consideration after this.
Second.
Okay, so right now, we're going to have a discussion and then a vote on the amendment, which is to add the Resource Recovery Council, Board of Public Works, and Inspections Appeals Board recommendations as listed in the packet. Any discussion on that?
So that would be, so if I could, Mr. Chairman, so that would mean you're voting on everything except the two in the top
No,
line
wait.
of Parks and
First of all, we're going to vote on the amendment.
Right.
Okay.
Which is
So,
adding to my motion.
We're voting on the amendment to add to the motion, okay? So, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So now the motion is to pass on to the full board the recommendations for Resource Recovery Council, Board of Public Works, Inspections Appeals Board, and Rodetta Herron for the partial term on Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
That's the motion on the floor, okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
Okay.
So that leaves us to Commissioner Wheeler.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to appoint Scott Robertson and David Graham to 3-year terms on the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Support.
And I have a second from Commissioner Thomas. Any further discussion? Commissioner Maxwell first, and then Wheelock.
I think this is wrong. We asked Mr. Dr. Leapsight to step up, and he did. And that's all.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Well, the fact is, a four-member subcommittee of this board held interviews. We interviewed, I believe, 7 or 8 people for these 3 positions. Very qualified candidates. We made a selection. It was not a unanimous decision. In fact, I think we went through 3 motions before we came up with a consensus, because we voted the first 2 times, voted 2-2. But the fact was, we came to a consensus that 3 of us supported these 3 candidates, and therefore the subcommittee's recommendation is before you to appoint these 2 members to the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Commissioner Henschel?
Parks Commissioner Leapsight was just appointed a few months ago to fulfill a remaining term, correct me if I'm wrong, and I sat on that subcommittee that recommended him to fill that term, and in my recollection, he was a stellar candidate with his accolades, his participation in the community with the Boy Scouts of America, just a superb candidate. And with that experience in mind, and if the ad hoc committee is willing, I'd like to hear what I guess what drew you to David Grams and Scott Robertson?
You know, I don't know if you're looking at me, I didn't chair that committee, but,
I really don't think.
you know, I
don't think
don't
we need to
believe that-
rehash the
you know,
decision-making process. at
you know,
this
I don't
point.
have my notes in front of me from the interviews about how they were, but, you know, like I said, we got a number of qualified candidates. These were the two candidates that the majority of us selected.
Okay. Commissioner Gilman and then Commissioner Felice.
I think it's entirely appropriate that we discuss the qualifications if we're before the full board. Obviously, we're taking the recommendation. There's someone who disagrees with the recommendation. She's already at least made the argument for Harry Liebsite. I think if there is a compelling argument in the other direction, let's hear it. Otherwise, I'd have to support the appointment of Harry Liebsite to this position, and I'd have to not support these other appointments until we decide which ones are the most appropriate for it. Are we going to deliberate, or are we just going to, rubber stamp every time?
Commissioner Felice.
Ad hoc committee number 2, I believe was chaired by Ross Richardson.
That's correct.
And the other members on that particular ad hoc committee appointed were Max Bauer, Wheelock, and Thomas. And I wasn't on that ad hoc. I wasn't present during the interviews. I would respect the judgment of those 4 commissioners from their positions on an ad hoc committee that did all the interviewing. So I will be supporting the motion to appoint Robertson and Grams per the recommendation of the ad hoc committee.
Mr. Redmond?
Well, I guess since I've been on this board, we used to have an L&A committee, and it was a committee of the board, sort of like we're appointing now, okay? But we had an official L&A committee, and they did all the interviews for appointments. And then we brought them forward and made the recommendation to the board. And back in that structure, previous to, the newer commissioners being on board, there was this, I guess, level of trust that, that the commissioners that we assigned to the committee were making the best judgment call they could. And sometimes they were tough decisions to make, and we had really a good lineup of good quality candidates. And it made it, so we just basically went with their recommendation, and for the commissioners that that weren't involved in the interviews, it's really a hard judgment call as to try to override it, because we weren't available to have the interview with Commissioner, or Mr. Robertson and Mr. Graham. So, and I can't recall ever, I guess in my history in this county commission, that we've overrode a recommendation from the appointments committee. There's been some disagreements, and I had one. I had one when Dave Rabson interviewed for the Northwest Regional Airport Commission. I made a very strong recommendation to my fellow commissioners that, he be reappointed. He was a good commissioner. I worked with him on the airport commission, just like she worked with Harry. And the committee voted not to reappoint him. I tried to explain it to Dave Rabson. It was kind of a hard to explain, but I did invite him in to go through another interview process once another position opened. But sort of the same thing happened with me, so I sort of know how you feel about that situation. But I don't have a resolution to the situation other than, not going against the protocol, I guess, with practice of trusting the people that interviewed the candidates. But I did speak with Harry, and he seemed to be a qualified candidate and was very interested in keeping the appointment, and probably would come back for the next appointment. And I guess if I'm on that committee, I would look seriously at him if he would be willing to reapply. For me to vote no, I don't have the information. I wasn't there at the meeting to assess whether Mr. Robertson or Mr. Grams would be a better fit or not. So, I would just encourage Mr. or Harry to reapply again, because there seems to be a rapid turnover in the Parks and Rec Commission lately, over the last 2 years, and I would anticipate another opening, and I would encourage him to apply, and if I'm on that committee, I would give him serious consideration.
Commissioner Gilman?
On paper, Dr. Liebsite is impressive. And from people I've talked to, other than Commissioner Maxbauer, he's got an impressive history. Then you add to it the fact that he was seated, he was appointed, and we have an opportunity to roll over that appointment, and there are a couple of openings, and we don't do it. Now, to me, it screams ideological push-off. And given the dysfunctional Parks Board that existed when I became a commissioner, that was supported by Commissioner Wheelock and Commissioner Richardson, in its support of keeping a program, baseball, under county control versus the way that it was for 62 years. I have a tendency to suspect just that, just ideological motion underneath, so.
Well, first of all, ideological, I don't know what you mean exactly by ideological. I don't know if you're talking party politics or whether you're talking the ideology that certain people have tried to inflict on the Parks and Rec Board, but I don't think we need to get into that. It wasn't ideological. You know, you want to address it? I'll address it. You know, I don't really think we needed to discuss this, but if you want to discuss it, let's discuss it. You know, Max Bauer wants to discuss this, let's discuss it. There were 4 of us on that committee. At one point, Commissioner Max Bauer said, well, she was, as it turned out, Commissioner Wheelock liked one person, I liked one person, and Commissioner Max Bauer liked Harry Liebsite. And so she said, well, you know, I'm okay with the other 2, you know, if we can appoint Harry. And then she decided that she wanted to get both Harry and Rodetta Herron appointed, who was not the choice of either Wheelock or me, you know, the first choice. And in the process of that, because basically Commissioner Max Bauer got greedy with the appointments, she only got one of them. As it turned out, Commissioner Thomas liked Rodetta Herron, and when we took a vote, as Commissioner Wheelock said, it took 3 votes before we came up with a combination, and that combination was the 3 that were presented here. I've known Harry Liebsite as long, probably, as anybody on this board, with the possible exception of Commissioner Max Bauer. I worked with him when I was on the COFAC group for the city. You know, it's like, it's not ideological. It's like we tried to pick the best people we could for the job. And quite frankly, you know, as long as we're talking about, you know, honoring our other committees, I'm amazed that we allowed a city appointed to the library board to come in here and dictate to us who we should appoint to the library. And you know what? That ad hoc, right down the line, boom, boom, boom. You wouldn't even do that for the Commission on Aging last year. So, you know, this is ridiculous. Either we honor each other's work and responsibilities or we don't. Commissioner, Henschel had his hand up first, then Thomas.
Dick was first.
I was going to say this, no matter how the vote came out. I think the applicants we had, particularly for Parks and Rec, were the best group of people I've ever had to interview. And it would have been a lot easier to pick from less qualified people. There's no doubt about it. They were all excellent.
Mr. Henschel.
I certainly appreciate the work you guys do, and I guess my point about Dr. Liebsite is this is a gentleman who I met 3 months ago, and prior to that time I had never met him in my life, and I have not met him since. But I still remember those things about him that stuck up in that interview, And that's why I asked the question, what was it about the other candidates that struck you, that drew you to them? And a person I've met once, 3 months ago, I've never met before or since, and I can remember things about him, but you, having just a week later, can't remember any, or don't want to share anything you remember about these other two. I guess that strikes me. If you can't give me one reason or tell me one thing about these people or why you gravitated towards them.
Well,
I will say that there's 2 or 3 questions that he didn't answer the question the way it was intended, at least. You know, he kind of strayed off, but I don't hold that against him.
I just don't want to get into debate about these candidates. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to question the motion, please.
all right.
Could you repeat the motion, please?
Okay, the motion is to appoint Scott Robertson and David Grams each to a 3-year term on the Parks and Rec Commission commencing January 1st, 2012.
Point of order, is that a call the question motion?
Call the question. Call the question.
Yep,
Call
that
the
means we have
motion.
a vote.
Okay. Does that require a second?
It actually doesn't require a second. I mean, if you want to have a
I
vote
would
on
second.
call the question, I'll call a vote on call the question.
Yeah, I'll do the second if there's a question about it.
Well, no, it doesn't require a second.
Okay.
I mean, like I say,
It just
Commissioner
stops any
Hensel, you know, if you want me to have a vote on calling the question, I will. Otherwise, we can just go directly to the vote.
I'm just honoring Commissioner Wheelock's request.
I just want to vote on the issue.
Yeah,
Because if that's not a call to question, I'd like to talk again.
yeah, that was a call the question.
Call the question.
Okay, then.
Okay. Okay, all in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed?
Nay.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, now on the motion before the board, by roll call, please.
Commissioner Lumkool,
No.
Thomas,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
No.
Fleece,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes.
Gilman,
No.
Inman,
Yes.
Henschel,
No.
Chairman Richardson.
Yes, motion passes 5-4. Okay, now we move to department action items, and the first item is the magistrate appointment for the district court.
Carol, the magistrates for the district court? You're okay.
Someone wake stocking up and tell her it's her turn.
Good evening. I almost said good morning.
Morning.
Like I've been here since.
Good afternoon.
Don't do that.
Or good evening.
I'm
We
Carol.
did that this morning. We started out this morning with interviews and we finished them this afternoon.
Yeah.
And we kept saying good morning to people, and it was noon.
Yeah.
I hear you. Carol Stocking, District Court Administrator. The first item that we have on the agenda tonight is the appointment of Bob Brown or Robert Brown to be the magistrate or a magistrate in the Grand Traverse County Division of the District Court. And in order for that to happen, the Board of Commissioners has to confirm it. So we're simply here asking for your support in that appointment.
So move for, as recommended.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Is he just the
Commissioner
new probation officer? Is that the?
Oh, no.
not new.
No.
Or you just hire him as a magistrate to deal with minor issues?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And you.
Yeah, and me.
Lemko? Commissioner Lemko?
This is a new position,
It's not a position.
so it's a replacement of somebody?
He's actually a probation officer, and he'll act as magistrate in an as-needed
Okay.
capacity.
Okay.
Commissioner Fleece?
And Tammy's still the magistrate?
Tammy is full-time magistrate,
And he'll be
sure.
a fill-in for Tammy? if
Yes,
she-
and on vacations and
Good.
when needed. Mhm.
So he gets to get up at night and sign the search warrant?
No,
No?
no, he won't be doing that. Not that part.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we have a RAP, or Risk Avoidance Program grant.
Let me start this, and I think maybe Jim will come up too. Jim Patrick with DK Security,
Perhaps the
but
judge.
we have Judge Stepka here as well. But the, on page 95 in your packet, we have Carol, with the assistance of Jim Patrick with DK Security, applied for and received a $20,000 RAP grant from MMRMA. RAP stands for Risk Avoidance Program. The grant would cover security cameras and security improvements at the Hall of Justice. The grant does require a $20,000 cash match. So in effect, with the RAP grant from MMRMA and a $20,000 cash match, it would be a $40,000 project. The pages 96 through 99 in your packet include the original grant application that Carol and Jim prepared. The total on that is $70,737 worth of equipment. So obviously with a $20,000 RAP grant and a $20,000 match, we could not completely do that project. On page 101, then the project was adjusted down to show what could be done with the $40,000 if the board would approve acceptance of the grant and matching the RAP grant. And I have Carol and Jim here and Judge Stepka to basically have a discussion with you regarding where we go with this project. The grant, one last comment, we have been awarded the grant, and technically we have to use it by 2/25, February 25th of 2012. We can request an extension from MMRMA on that funding. With that, I think I'll turn it over to the board for questions, and we will do our best to answer your questions.
Commissioner Lundpool.
Where will the $20,000 come from?
I would recommend that we pay for that out of our insurance fund. We have accumulated some fund balance there. We have all of our current cases or incidents fully covered. We have no outstanding claims with MMRMA at this point in time, and we have a fund balance of about $125,000 in that fund, and that would fit well with what that fund is for. I mean, it funds our self-insured retention on liability, and in my opinion, this, because it is a risk avoidance program, it helps us avoid those issues in the future.
Motion to approve.
Support.
I have a motion, support, and yes, Commissioner Henschel.
It sounds like a good motion. I just wonder if you could give us a little more specifics on what we're buying. I understand cameras and security equipment.
Yes, we have, in the Hall of Justice, there's 28 total cameras, and there's 4 outside and 24 inside. Whenever they were installed, when they built the building, they bought basically the same camera, the same 24 interior cameras, one size fits all kind of mentality. And they're good in certain areas, and in the areas of the courtrooms and the larger areas, their efficiency is really, really poor. The end result and the end product of the video stream is really, really poor. The devices that's used to capture that through the DVRs and the controlling system is extremely difficult to use. The stuff that we're looking at is Windows-based, much like your computer. It'd be run off a computer at the security system. It's through IP system, meaning it's binary code, zeros and ones. It would have remote access in case of an emergency situation where we have a shooting incident or barricaded gunman. Intervention from law enforcement would be able to go online and get live video footage as it's happening to be able to help aid them in their response to an emergency situation in our building.
Commissioner Gilman.
So the total cost of the system would be $70,000?
No, what they're proposing, if you start on page 101, based on the RAP grant and our match, I think Jim probably has provided a scaled-back version of what they were recommending with that grant and our match requirement.
Jason, the 2 pages that have the DK at the top and it starts CCTV, HOJ, those are the scaled-back recommendations. It is really minus the X-ray machine, which was included in the original grant request.
I've had some experience with some of the Aerocon cameras and I wouldn't trust them. Out of 8 or 10 of them that I've sold, I've had to service 6. I just want you to know that. I don't know some of the other equipment. Do we have other bids that have, on this particular project?
Not as of yet. I reached out to EPS Security System, because that's who we deal with our alarm systems, and had them bring their engineers in to take a look at the physical layout of the areas that are deficient in the Hall of Justice. And that was just one of their recommendations. So we needed to start somewhere with this grant application, Commissioners, to put something on paper to be able to tell.
So this would go back out for bid?
I would think that we would look at other options for cameras if, in fact, that camera, the outcome of that camera, the Aircom, is not sufficient. And I believe what I've seen has been pretty darn good.
I've heard good and bad about Aircom, but my personal experience, it's a nightmare for a reseller or, you know, I'm a distributor, and it's a nightmare when stuff comes back and I have to deal with the manufacturer, and half of them don't speak the same language. You know,
And they're in Asia.
I got to tell you. I know that for example, the library went to an IP-based system, and it's still a developing technology. Do we know, is this going to be on its own lines, wires, or is it going to be within the framework of the network that's here already?
I believe it's going to be within the framework of the network that's here already. The EPS did come up with their engineers, this has been numerous months ago, even before this grant application really got started, because we wanted to look at our options. Because I started this project 2 years ago come January. And they brought up a camera and did a mock-up actually in Judge Haley's courtroom. And I don't remember who all was there, but Carol was there, and numerous other people were there that are part of the Hall of Justice. The end product, the video stream end product that came out of this same camera that you're recommending now, Commissioner, was, and I'm telling you, light years better than the existing equipment that we have there now. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that this camera the EPS is recommending is the thing to do at this juncture, but we need to do something relative to improving the camera equipment in that building.
Absolutely, and I agree, and you're never going to find a stronger supporter of CCTV systems than myself. I'm just trying to make sure we get what's right for the system. How long ago were the cables installed that we would be using? How long ago was that backbone installed? Because this goes to what was the cable technology at the time?
Sure.
You know, 5E, 6E.
I'm going to guess it was done in '06. I don't know that the building was...
It was in '06,
Yeah.
so it was when the construction of that building happened.
My concern is bandwidth.
Yeah, I understand that, and one of the things that I've mentioned to the folks here, I think if you could take the physical walls away from the Hall of Justice and take a look at the cabling that's in there, I wouldn't bet my last dollar, but I'd bet part of it, that there's splices all through that building. There's line loss and degradation of signals. I would guess the connections are, at minimum, poor, which leads to where we're at today. I have talked to the initial contractor that did this system. They're not user-friendly. They're in Lansing, and they're not really all that interested, short of bringing $3,000 to come up here to take a look at the problem. And actually, I took my staff, well, I have a couple guys that have a little bit more skills than I do, and we did the adjustment, tuning, cleaning, focusing, readjusting on our own accord to make it a little bit better. We may have improved it a couple of percentile, but it's still a far cry to be able to take care of the things that we need to do. And with this, we would take those cameras with their limited application and we'd be able to put them in other areas, such as the lobbies on both the first and second floor, the adult probation areas, the juvenile probation areas, the horseshoe, and be able to put cameras in there that would be adequately sufficient to be able to capture video footage in that building. We see nearly 100,000 people a year in that building. And it's a pretty high traffic area. I have maintained a watch list for my security staff that is upwards to about 17 or 18 people that are problem people that come into the building. They not only visit our buildings frequently, they visit this building frequently, and they cause problems. And by having some ability to capture this video, we can help law enforcement if something happens. We can also capture video footage to make photographs of people. It's just a great tool to capture evidence. And the stuff that's in their place right now is really, really poor. So,
If I could, I'd just ask that what we're looking for here is, obviously, I think Jim has explained that we need to do something with the system. We have a grant. This is a perfect opportunity to do this. I would like the board to formally accept the grant, and then I'll work with Jim and Carol and the folks in the Hall of Justice to bid this out, and, you know, we'll live within the 40,000. I've identified a funding source, but, you know, we do need to get going on this and get back with MMRMA, and I think this is a very good project, and we will bid it out.
So do you want me to change my motion to accept the grant?
Yeah.
I'll be glad to do that.
And direct that we bid it out.
And direct the staff to.
We
go
accept
out
the
for bids.
grant, and we've identified the matching funds.
Yep.
And to bid it out.
So.
Is that okay? Were you the seconder?
Pardon?
Who's the seconder?
The second was Mr. Thomas.
Thomas, that's okay? All right. Actually, Sonny had his hand up first. Larry.
No, I
Okay,
I
go
was
ahead,
just
Larry.
going to say, as long as we've, you know, as long as I think we need to accept the grant, we've identified the matching funds, but I do think we need to have some sort of a detailed recommendation of exactly what we're purchasing.
Okay. Commissioner Flees?
Dean, we will be putting this out for bid then?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. But I'd like to make one other comment.
Sure.
You know, it bothers me to spend $20,000 taxpayer money for more security for a courthouse, when at the end of this month, we've got a minimum of 11 families that aren't going to have any income. And that really bothers me.
We agree with you on that.
I'm almost to the point that I'd like to vote no on this, because I don't know that the courthouse is that dangerous. I really don't. I've never seen any gunplay in there. We haven't had any shootouts. We haven't had anybody killed. You know, if we went on that philosophy, I think the city police should be riding around in armored personnel carriers, because Sergeant Finch was killed on the front porch of a house on Wellington Street, a couple blocks from here. So if I vote no, the reason I'm voting no is I think it's the wrong time. You know, perhaps a year or two, we apply for another grant. I realize we would lose the grant for the 20,000, but I think it's the inappropriate time to do this.
Commissioner Gilman?
I'm going to agree with Commissioner Fleece on this. I'm all for more security, but we really, I mean, where we pull it out of a little account here or there, somehow we seem to always find the small bits of cheese that are left in the corners. We've gone on pretty well in the courthouse without this to this point. We're looking at added expenses in the next couple of years, and we're not looking at growing revenues. And maybe we need to start consolidating those little bits and pieces a little bit better, just so we can better prepare ourselves for the next round of cuts to employees and what have you.
Commissioner Maxbauer?
Judge? Do you really feel you need this?
Yes, absolutely. Without question.
Okay. Mr. Henschel?
Well, to follow up on Commissioner Fleece's bad news about 11 people losing their jobs, I'd like to add on that 11 people will be getting new jobs because somebody is going to clean these buildings.
Well, actually, it's 10.
10.
One is remaining an county
For a couple
employee.
months, yes.
No, for going to Commission on Aging.
Oh, okay. Well, anyways, my point is, there's not 10 less jobs in the economy, there's 10 different jobs in the economy, and I know you're gonna make the point it might pay a little less, but there's 10 people that are out of work are gonna be in work, so it's not all bad news. But I guess my question, as we add security to the courthouse, what would it take for our security to be the level where citizens don't have to partially disrobe to get into the courthouse? And from personal experience, my grandfather was 79 with bladder cancer, and we had This is just a few months before his death. He had to come to the courthouse, and it was some proceeding he had to go to, and I accompanied him, and it was very difficult and painful for him to do, and to get into the courthouse, he had to take some of his clothes off at the security check center. Earlier this year, I was at the Library of Congress. I walked in and sat in Congressman Dave Camp's chair, and I walked through the United States White House and never had to take anything off. All I did, at the White House, I flashed my driver's license. But at the Grand Traverse County Hall of Justice, every time I come in, I have to take an article of clothing off. What would it take to upgrade our system so that people aren't having to partially disrobe to get into the courthouse?
Commissioner, when you talk about an article of clothing, are you talking about pants and shirts? What we ask people to take off are things and remove from their pockets, things that are metal. You're walking through a magnetometer. That includes a belt, and I think that's what you're making reference to. We do give consideration to those people that are extremely large, that have the inability, once the pants are on, to be able to put their belt on. We're very compassionate with that respect. Somehow, I don't know what was communicated, and God rest your father, what was communicated to our staff, but I can assure you, we do it every day. People come in and say, I have a bad shoulder, I have this inability, and we do not require them to take their belts off. But there are things that can be contained in a belt. There can be guns that can be concealed behind your belt buckle. There are zippers on belts. Many of the belts are, especially the designing belts that ladies wear, are just completely full of metal. So when they come through the magnetometer, it alerts on that general area. Now, we have to take a look and see what's causing it. So let's remove the belt to begin with, and that'll help us eliminate that problem. But we do a lot of respect for the people coming into that building. We get compliments weekly on how we serve the citizens coming into that facility. And the exception to people having concerns with taking the belts are very rare.
Wow. I'm sorry, that was my experience.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by roll call.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have another question.
Yes.
The monthly service agreement, it's estimated here at $329, and that goes on every month the system's operating.
That's my understanding. That's through EPS.
So roughly, we're going to be looking at $4,000 additional every year, correct? Thank you.
Is that correct, Carol?
Well, that would be, with this proposal, I mean, we would bid that out.
That would be bid
That
out.
would be part of the bid that we would.
But it would be, there would be additional
Right.
monthly
The
service.
first year, if I understood it correctly, and looking at the first year, it was included in the price. The second year, it's a monthly service fee.
Are we paying a service fee now?
We are, but because we'd be adding additional equipment, there would be additional service fee.
But we are paying a fee now.
Yes.
This is a
Absolutely.
larger fee, but we are paying a fee now.
Yes, sir.
I might add to that, the point of the point of the monthly service charge, and this doesn't have any effect on my vote, is essentially so that we can budget any replacements, repair, what have you, ahead of time. It allows the installer, basically, if something breaks, he comes in, replaces it, and we don't have to pay anything, and that's the whole purpose of it. Sometimes they get ahead, sometimes they get kicked by it, but it's essentially insurance. And it's not that bad from as far as the amount goes. That's not, percentage-wise, that's not too bad.
Mr. Chairman, could you repeat the motion, please?
We've amended the motion to accept the grant and bid out the project and you've identified the matching funds.
Accept the grant,
And bid out the
identified the
project
funds.
and you haven't identified the matching funds.
identify the matching funds, and then go out for bid. Those three components.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Dennis?
Yeah, just a clarification. I thought we identified for you the matching
We
funds.
did.
It was in the
That
insurance.
was part of the
We just have to
motion,
authorize-
is
we have to authorize
that the money come out of the insurance
You
fund.
have identified the
Yes.
money. That is
Yes.
how it was stated.
All right, and that'll come with the final recommendation.
Okay, by roll call, please.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Lees?
No.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Gilman?
No.
Inman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Lemko?
Yes.
Chairman Richardson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
very much.
Thank you for coming. Thanks, Carol.
And now we have the Health Department. Mr. Kiesler.
No, I didn't either.
Fred Kiesler, Health
we-
Officer, Grand Traverse County Health Department. I have a topic for discussion that's tied to the CPBC Amendment Number 1. There's two aspects to that. There's about a $2,000 increase for family planning and a $35,000 for tobacco advertising and labeling inspection enforcement from the Food and Drug Administration. The federal government has set up a new program for tobacco compliance for sales, and have then passed that money on to the state, which wants to contract with us to do that program. We had done something similar to this back when we had Bonnie Willings on staff, and we did inspections on facilities. We did some sting operations too with minors for retailers that are selling tobacco products to minors. This is similar, except that the sting operation part is going to be done by law enforcement with the state, so we wouldn't have a part of that. But this is more going in, looking for incentives that don't meet the federal requirements for trying to get young people to smoke. The reason we would be interested in doing this is that while we've done good things with our WIC and maternal support program and our Healthy Futures program to promote healthy outcomes on pregnancies, we still have about, as last count, 24.4% of our mothers giving birth in Grand Traverse County have smoked in the last trimester of their pregnancy. And most of those are relatively young women who smoke. And that's higher than the state average by about 4 to 5 percentage points. Also, and this is data I just received this week from the Michigan Pregnancy and Pediatric Nutrition Surveillance. And also in a recent report on infant mortality, Grand Traverse County has around 7 deaths per 1,000 of children under 1 year of age. And one of the biggest contributing factors is smoking. So it is something that we can do in a positive way to address the smoking of young people. And this would fund us $35,000. And Sarah expressed an interest in doing this because it doesn't really fit any of our classifications. That it makes sense since she's a health educator in background, but also when she worked for District 10 Health Department, she did a similar program for both tobacco and alcohol distribution to minors. So I wanted to give you this heads up because that's part of what we'll need a resolution for approval of the CPBC Amendment Number 1.
Move for approval as presented. Support?
Okay, you're speaking specifically of the CPBC.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I have a motion and a second.
Now, Fred, this includes both pieces of this, correct? The additional monies for family planning and the $35,000 for tobacco?
Correct.
Any discussion? Commissioner Felice?
It's not costing us anything.
No.
Fred, this is all federal funds?
Yes.
I won't support the motion because I absolutely detest spending federal tax dollars on smoking when we've got rampant drug usage in this community and there's very little enforcement. The voters in the state of Michigan passed the medicinal marijuana law, and after 29 years in law enforcement, there's no way that I'm going to spend any taxpayer dollars, I don't care if they're federal, local, state, $35,000 for some person to go around trying to catch smokers. The reason we try to catch smokers because law enforcement and the other agencies involved can't catch the druggies. And I won't support the motion.
Can I clarify, this isn't against the smoker, it's against the retailer, like breaking up packs of cigarettes and selling them individually or having incentives to young people that don't meet the federal requirements.
Fred, I still would oppose it. Why? While she's in checking with the retailer, they're outside smoking crack, doing heroin, cocaine, smoking pot, but nobody's watching them because there's no $35,000 to watch them. It's just the way I happen to feel about it.
Commissioner Gilman?
You know, the smoking debate over the last couple of decades has really gotten somewhat ridiculous. The very same people who've really pounded their fists on the table, crying for an end, for smoking cessation, for the fact that there's smoke in their face when they go out and eat, it's becoming ridiculous, frankly. I, for one, cannot support anything where we are adding to more of a regulatory environment, more intrusion into people's businesses, frankly. And I'll tell you, commissioners, we have a lot of retailers out there who vote, who have families, who have dumb kids who are going to sell smokes to kids, who have employees who will make that mistake, and they're going to be busted. And then they're going to spend a lot of time dealing with our system that we just took a grant for to deal with. All at the same time, these very same people, for example, and I know this is kind of an abstract out of there, they would advocate abortion, for example, which is quite unhealthy to young children. So, not a chance in the world would I support this at all. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, by roll call, please.
Commissioner Max Bauer.
No.
Fleece.
No.
Wheelock.
Yes.
Gilman.
No.
Inman.
Yes.
Henschel.
No.
Lemkool.
Yes.
Thomas.
I know Nolan ain't gonna like me, but I'll vote yes.
I'm sorry, is it yes?
Yes.
Is that a yes?
And Chairman Richardson.
Yes.
Yes, it's 5-4.
Okay, and the next we have the second part of this, which is to get Sarah Schemick commissioned as an inspector for the FDA to conduct tobacco compliance check inspections. To accept the amendment for $35,000.
I think you just voted. That was what we voted on.
That was
No, we just voted on the first part.
Well, no,
Was it- was it
I think there's
included?
two pieces. One is to accept the amendment, and then the second piece is to get Sarah Schemick commissioned. Is that the way I understand this, or is one part of the other?
I don't know if that requires a vote.
Yeah, I think that's up to the
That's just
discretion
part
of the
of the
health
contract.
director.
I thought we were done.
Then Fred will take
we
care
done,
of
Dennis?
getting his
Yes, I think
inspector
we're done.
applied.
Yeah, we're done.
Thank you, Fred.
Fred, I do have a question to you, not related to this. I received a call from a citizen today, and they'd received a notice to renew their dog license from the county health department, I presume.
The treasurer.
And
Treasurer.
the treasurer's office.
Yeah.
Well, it was a postcard with 29 cents postage on it. But the postcard was inside a letter that had a 44-cent, or an envelope that had a 44-cent stamp on it. And I just wondered why that would be.
I have no idea. I can find out for you. Are you sure, did this individual indicate that it came from the county treasurer, or did it come from the veterinarian who had sold them the previous license?
We got one from the treasurer recently, too.
And was it in an
For our dead
envelope?
dogs.
Was
He
it
said
a
it was
postcard
from
in an
the county.
envelope? Commissioner Gilman, was it a postcard in an envelope?
I can't recall, to be honest.
Okay.
I know I saw the postcard, but
I'll bring in the card in the envelope.
I'll find out from Bill Rokas tomorrow, and I'll get you an answer.
And
I'll be very surprised if that's what the county's doing, but I'll get you an answer.
Commissioner Lemko?
In the NACO news, they talked about grants for health departments. I don't know if you saw that. If anybody else saw that. Larry, I don't know if you saw that come through.
Regarding what now?
That there was a grants for increasing the value of health departments. That was supposedly some huge money that was supposedly coming from the feds. Are you aware of that?
I don't know if we're talking, I'm not sure. I mean,
We can look into it on the NACO website.
Yeah, well, let's look at, I might want to look in that, the NACO website to find out for sure what that grant is and whether or not it'd be something that we ought to be looking at.
okay.
We will look into it.
It was, I think, in the last NACO newsletter.
Yeah, I don't recall, but
And I think I deleted it, but anyway, so I just triggered, seeing you here that asked that question.
Okay.
And,
do it.
Hockey game on.
Fred, as you know, I received a call from one of Commissioner Richardson's constituents with a problem, and thank you very much for addressing it.
Okay, and I talked to him this afternoon.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Fred, one more question. How they doing on the building?
Well, they got the forms out there. They're
They're
start
going.
pouring concrete this week, they thought.
That's cool.
I gotta drive over there and take a look at it.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite a big hole. It looks
Don't step in the basement.
Big hole in the ground.
It's
Right,
amazing.
it's amazing how much dirt Mullen moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went by there 2 days ago and about broke my neck. I couldn't believe, it looked like they had most of the dirt work done, but like you said, there was a great deal of work.
I was told to tell you this, that if you want to go on, to let me know. We got to get you a hard hat. It's a hard hat area.
Yeah. Just stopping and looking at it, it's just amazing to see what they've done.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, keep an eye on it for us,
Oh,
Fred.
I shall. We meet every Monday morning at 9:30 there with the contractors, and
Don't encourage him.
Hey,
He's watching it.
believe me, the weather has been on their side.
Not been on my
I
side.
know, let's not go
I said
there.
their side.
Let's not go there.
Looking good, Fred.
Thanks,
all
Fred.
right. Thank you.
Next, we have the home chore equipment repair and maintenance bid.
Georgia?
Oh, now we got Georgia on our mind.
Good evening. We are here tonight, this is Michelle Mercer, she's one of our Commission on Aging board members, and we are here to ask for approval of our home chore equipment repair and maintenance bid. The lowest bidder was Roy's General Store at an hourly shop rate of $54.50 with a 16% discount on parts. We sent the bid out in October to 6 companies, and we put a legal ad in the Record Eagle. We got no requests for additional packets. We received 2 bids back, and the Commission on Aging Board recommended the lowest bidder. And just to let you know, there is a conflict of interest with Commissioner Henschel, and I don't know if he sent a letter, but as the
Yes.
policy requests that he send a letter.
Commissioner Flynn?
I would move that we concur with the recommendation to award the 2012 home chore equipment repair and maintenance contract to Roy's General Store at a shop rate of $54.50 an hour and 16% discount on parts.
Support.
First of all, Commissioner Fleets, I really think you should, since you bid on the contract as well, I think you should be recusing yourself. I understand you didn't get it.
Why?
But the fact that you bid it, I think, would mean that you should not be,
I don't think
voting on
anybody's
the
got a problem
contract.
with it. I commend him for
I
doing it.
I would
commend him for doing it.
respectfully disagree with you. I bid on it, but the contract, the recommendation wasn't to award it to my
It doesn't
company, so I don't
benefit
see
him at
where I have any conflict.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah, I would let that one go.
I asked that question, because I think you asked me to, Commissioner. I asked that question of Civil Council, but haven't received an answer on that yet.
I think if there's an issue, that could be addressed at the board meeting.
So,
Any discussion?
Well, at the request of the chairman, I'll withdraw my motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll
Okay.
support it.
Okay, we have a motion by Lemko, support by Thomas. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, by roll call, please.
Commissioner Fleece?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Abstain.
Lemkool?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Axbauer?
Yes.
Chairman Richardson?
No. Okay, then we have the staffing plan amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen Seaman, Human Resources Director. This is a staffing plan amendment that goes along with the 2012 budget.
Dennis?
Yeah, Commissioners, I don't know that, the appropriate way to approach this, but I had a discussion with Jen. You'll see that under administration, we're eliminating a half-time clerical assistant, and I proposed that in the budget and recommended it, and you approved it. The money's gone from the budget. That half-time clerical assistant is in the central services budget. And so now what we've done is we've picked up the work with our existing staff. And now we finally have a new office manager, but I guess my point is the work of that clerical assistant hasn't gone away from the central services budget. So we're just doing it. So I'm asking consideration of the board not to delete that from the staffing plan until we finish looking at how we're going to organize our clerical staff in the office. You don't have to be concerned about us spending any of that money because none of that money is budgeted. It's simply a matter of not changing the staffing plan until we look at how we're going to reorganize the staff with the new manager. But if the board is uncomfortable with it, we'll go along with your request. I guess I'm just asking to hold off on that one half a position until I give a chance for Linda to kind of review where the staff's going to be spending their time.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the recommendations from the Human Resource Director with the exception of the clerical assistant for the administration. I'd like to leave that as it is for right now, pending the reorganization of the office, but, there is no money identified in the budget for that position, so.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion by Wheelock, support by Fleets. Any discussion? Commissioner Henschel?
Dennis, what have we been using an IT programmer for up until now?
They've been doing a lot of the programming. This person was specifically, she is retiring. This person was specifically doing I won't get all of them. Her main responsibility was in the jail. She was handling all the jail programs, including the inmate tracking, the concession services, and she was working other places.
Also on
That was
Commission on
her main
Aging
one. Commission on Aging.
programs.
Was this data entry or actual?
No, this is programming.
Coding
Yeah.
programs?
Yeah.
And how are we handling that moving forward?
We're going to do it with the existing staff.
Okay.
No. I mean, she works, like example, about 3 years ago, some of you remember David Bennett came in and told us we needed to revamp the way we were reporting out the information, who was reported under what kind of sentencing guidelines. So she revamped all that. These are some of the old systems that we programmed ourselves 15 years ago. We're trying to get away from those. The New World is an example. We're getting away from doing it ourselves. So this will leave us with one programmer and Don Sheehan, the director, and just technicians after that.
Thank you.
All right, have a motion on the floor. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Goodman.
The housing coordinator position, I guess I'm just going to have to stick with my thoughts that we're not going to see grants after this year. They're going to go away. And if this position is paid for with the grants, the position's going to go at that time anyhow. I'll vote no on this motion simply. I defer.
Actually, Commissioner, this is paid for, 40,000 of it is paid for out of the county general fund, which was our appropriation to the housing fund.
No,
And it's going to be picked up by grants
No,
now.
you said that would not happen.
Oh, that's right. You're right. We took it out. You're right. It is scheduled to be paid for by grants.
It is.
We eliminated the county
It
appropriation.
should be being paid for out of the housing grants.
Right.
Are we absolutely sure now which
Yes.
where it's being paid?
You are correct. You and Commissioner Richardson are correct. We eliminated the $40,000 appropriation. That's how we saved the money, and we said we're going to fund it out of the grants. That's how it is.
I guess then, just to be sure, I'll vote no.
If the grants go away, the position goes away.
Yeah.
That's been a rule.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. By roll call, please.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Yes.
Gilman?
No.
Inman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Lemkohl?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Maxbauer?
Yes.
Fleece?
Yes.
Chairman Richardson?
No. Okay, Next, we have personal days for non-contract employees.
Yes, this is also part of the budget process, was that the non-contract employees, both exempt and non-exempt, would have 3 less personal days cashed out to them in 2012.
Question? My understanding is that was the part of the strategy of the budget. Was that not true?
It was part of the strategy of the budget, but it was also part of the strategy that said that we extended contracts for our union employees with the 6% and 8% copay on health insurance.
Right.
And those ones that extended their contracts to longer period of time were required to give up 3 days.
Okay, that's right. I remember.
And this
Okay.
is the same for non-union, because you can only go one way with your choice. You can't go in several directions with that 80-20 cap.
Oh, okay.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. So, just to be clear, John, they have 8 personal days, but if they only use 5, up to 5, they don't get those final 3 paid for.
Correct.
Okay. All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Job reclassifications?
Is about right.
Huh?
Is about right.
Yeah, I'm bringing this at your request back again. We had a discussion, was it last month?
Yeah.
I believe. And in August, there was also a recommendation put forth, so I have enclosed that as an attachment for the job reclassification requests. I guess I'll leave it at that and answer any questions.
I just, clarification, I think the board or the committee asked at its last meeting or the meeting before that, whatever, that the human resource director come back with, if we were to review a reclassification process, what process would we use? What would be the resources necessary if you needed additional, and what would be the time frame that would be needed to do it right without putting any other pressures on your internal department. So it was just a summary of that so we can get a feel for it, and then we can address classification if we're going to move forward with classification tonight. Is that correct, Dennis?
That is.
Okay.
Dennis?
Yes, I just want to be clear, Jen and I have talked this over a great deal with Dean as well. Staff's position on this is that we think that the economy as it is right now and the economic condition of the county is such that we don't think, regardless of doing this study, that you're going to be in a position where you're going to have money to institute any increases next year, and we're recommending that you not move forward with this for at least the year because of economic conditions, and then revisit it at a later date.
Larry?
Which one? Me? I think Felice had his hand up
Commissioner
too.
Evans, you have your hand up too?
Yes.
You're next. Sorry.
I noticed that he gets the preferential.
No, but you notice I deferred to you.
Mostly he's more in my line of sight, that's the problem. I turn sideways.
I need to sit back,
It's a
probably.
good thing we don't have a Darrell.
No, go ahead.
Larry and Darrell.
I would make a motion that, based on the administrator's recommendation, that we not proceed with this at the time due to the economic conditions of the county.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Felice, a second by Henschel. Commissioner Inman?
Yes, this is a hard one for me, and there was a lot of tossing and turning during late nights that, just trying to figure out, I could see both points of view, the practicality of having a system in place where we can really have good judgment of where these people should be in their classification, and are we appropriately paying people, and the whole issue of declining revenues and laying people off and bidding out things to save money. As I was talking to the 5 local units of government that I represent, I just kind of explained, this is a real challenge for an employer to deal with, and I said, I think the bottom line is, And it's been the communication that this board has sent to all the employees, I think now for the 4th year, it could be longer, that until the revenue situation for the county stabilizes, we would not move forward with reevaluating positions. And that has been the standing communication to the employees. I guess after a lot of personal deliberation and speaking to members of other elected officials within my district, they kind of concur that, we got to stabilize revenues before we get into looking at other matters within this classification plan. So I guess I, in the end, agree with the staff recommendation. I just feel for the situation for, staff members that really, truly should be evaluated, and job positions have changed, but that's just life, I guess.
Okay, Commissioner Lemko?
Yeah, I also have been struggling with this because I really support that we need to do job reclassifications. I just don't know where we're going to come up with the money, and I haven't seen a budget dollar amount as to what it would really cost us if we did this. That would be helpful. Is it 100,000? Is it 600,000?
Well, last time we projected it, Commissioner, it was almost 900,000. We had put half of it in the budget, and we had said we'd put the other half in the next year. That was 3 or 4 years ago. And so that was the estimate. But again, remember, it's an estimate until you've said we're going to change the market if we relook at this, or we've suggested that. So it's a guess. But my guess would be something less than that, but still in the hundreds of thousands.
But is there a way for the Human Resources Department to be able to do some sort of judgment in some of these things? Are we out of line in our classification, so far out of line that we need to do something? Is there something halfway in between? Is there another option that we could be looking at to kind of make it a little more fair for what we got for the employees? And I don't know what those options are.
Commissioner Masspar?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Just because an employee is busier does not justify a job reclassification. Isn't that correct?
Yep.
So, but if the job requires higher education, a higher level of certification,
Different
then
responsibility.
Job duties and responsibilities have changed. Not necessarily the volume of work, but the job duties and responsibilities have changed. That's what you would look at in terms of a job reclassification review, those specific items.
I guess I have another question here. We are still serving the residents of Grand Traverse County. I mean, with pretty much the same services that we've been providing for the last 6 years. And we have a point system. So if we aren't doing any more service, our points wouldn't necessarily increase, would they? I'm struggling like the other commissioners. I mean, we've gone 6 years without any kind of reclassification. I personally don't believe the department head's job reclassifications probably would change. Now, if you do some kind of comparison, level 4 assessors, for instance, and, you look at what Garfield just paid and et cetera, then, yeah, I can see, but help me here, I'm struggling.
6 years is a long time, really, to go without looking at your job structure. Typically, you'd want to do that every 3 years, 3 to 4 years, to review that, just to make sure that you're still competitive and everything is still appropriate within your job classification structure. Job duties and responsibilities tend to move around. You just want to make sure that people are rewarded appropriately for what they're doing. I agree, it sounds like I wasn't here when all the Siegel stuff took place, but providing the same services to the public, some duties and responsibilities might have just changed with that. I haven't been able to dive into this too much because that would be doing a study. It's really hard to find out how much it would cost or how many people it would impact until we really get in there and spend the time looking at it. doing job shadows, looking at duties and responsibilities, filling out job analysis questionnaires, those sort of things. So it's hard to estimate.
I have another tough question, which I don't know that you can answer. How much longer would you recommend we wait?
She just told you 3 years apart. It's now been 6.
I'm going to answer that. I don't think we believe for the system, I think we've waited too long. But the problem is you also have to mix in the economics of this situation and our finances. And we don't believe that the finances are there to do anything with the system. So to go through the study, and I'm just simply looking at the likelihood that the board will find it financially or politically acceptable to increase wages next year as a result of this, I think the likelihood of that is very small. And so that's why I'm recommending not putting our employees through this.
Dennis, when we finally do this, because clearly at some point we have to do this, when we do this, are we also going to be looking at whether or not we should be doing that work?
That's a much different study. In a sense, they could be done at the same time, but that second part, should we be doing this work, is really more of an issue for budget.
Commissioner Edmund?
I just want to bring out 3 points, I guess. One is that we have continued to give our employees cost of living raises, and other employees in the private sector have not gotten raises over a period of years.
True.
Other counties have chosen not to give their employees raises over a period of years. And the Siegel study showed, even though they felt the methodology of the discounting factor was invalid, or we could have had a different approach, it did, even though the discounting factor was applied, it did show the majority position other than the major departmental positions or the professional positions. We were fairly close in line. So the fact that we've given raises every year, I think, gives me a little bit of a comfort level that we're not totally out of line with what we might see as a market study. The second thing is that you have to take a look at the whole package that Grand Traverse County has for their employees. A lot of employers don't have our total compensation benefit package. If you go to, for example, a bank, if you're a teller, you don't get family health coverage, all right? You have to be an officer of the bank or an assistant vice president to have family health coverage. You get single health coverage. So I know we compare government to government, and sometimes we'll go back to the private sector and look at that and those things. I'm telling you that, based on giving raises and the whole compensation plan that the county has and its benefits plan, I like probably repeat the golden statement that Commissioner Maxbauer has said many times: where are the vacancies and can we fill them based on our current pay structure and the benefit structure? And if we're filling them, then we're not in trouble yet. So she's convinced me that until we get a report that says we're in trouble and we can't fill positions, then that just gives me a signal that we have a problem. Now, I asked Jen to clarify a question for me that I put on everyone's table, and that was the misunderstanding that I had, I don't know if anybody else had, is that if we went through a classification plan, if they were making X and the classification plan said they should be making a lot more, $20,000 more or $10,000 more, would they automatically get that raised to $20,000 or $10,000 or $20,000? And she is telling, I believe what you were telling me in this memo is, you would not automatically go to that maximum amount. You would take it over an incremental part of years as a part of our personnel policy. So if I understand your communication correctly, so the issue of if we go through a classification plan and we see a big differential, that person isn't going to step up and get a $20,000 or $30,000 raise overnight. They would have to go through a step structure until they got to that point. I would just want to make that clarification, and if that is not true, then you need to help me with this. And I guess my last comment would be, if we have positions that are vacant, and we are unable to fill them based on the compensation structure of the position, and that goes vacant 6 months, 9 months, a year, and we just can't find anybody to accept that job for that compensation level, then I think we just say, for that position, we're just going to have to go out and do a quick market study and figure out where we should be on that position and fill it. And just take it from that point, and then when things get better, the revenues stabilize, then this board can make a decision about, let's go out and do the full classification plan. I mean, that's just some things to throw out at you.
Commissioner Gilman?
We're in a feedback loop. We're kind of doing a disservice to the employees, actually. We have this idea that we need to go through this reclassification, and then we base those particular classifications on somebody else's nearby pay scale, and then they're probably doing the same thing, and they look at us, and it's like it tends to ratchet it up. I'll tell you, the quickest way to find out what the job's worth is to set up a new framework and put out the help wanted sign, and as you say, you wait 6 months. If nobody's filling the spot, then you're not going to pay enough for it. You have to determine whether or not it's worth paying that money for that job, or you give some of those duties to somebody else who's working here already. Frankly, because of the way that it is set up, because of the contracts that we have right now, we cannot afford to even consider going and doing these reclassifications. And unfortunately, we're kind of corralled into this position simply because of those contracts. So I definitely agree with the motion. We have to put it off.
Commissioner Lundquist?
Yeah, if we're going to vote not to do it, don't say we're going to do it in a year from now. Telling the employees yes, no, leaves unexpected expectations.
I think you got to say wait until revenue stabilizes, and then we'll reconsider it.
No, we just say we're not going to do job reclassification, period.
Until further notice.
If they decide someplace down the road they want to bring the issue back to the commissioners, then that's up to Dennis and Jen to be able to bring that back to us. But us, we're done with it.
Mr. Maxbauer?
I have a question for Dennis, and it's based on Commissioner Inman's comments. I know we probably can do that. I've used Commission on Aging as an example. When we've had an ad or an opening for homemaker aid, we'll get 150 applicants. Mm-hmm. So we're paying a fair wage and benefits. But yet when we have a level 4 requirement for an assessor, if we get no applicants, clearly we can ratchet that up. It's a department head. It's a non-union position. But my question, Dennis, for you is, as Commissioner Inman just said, if we have positions that are union positions that are not being filled, can we increase the rate of pay for those positions and just do it for those positions and not do it countywide, or are we going to have to, in order to fill those positions, are we going to have to succumb to a countywide study?
No, our present system allows for, to accommodate those things with market increases. And that was one of the problems with our existing system. If you look at it, you see grade 1, 2, 3, 3A, 3B, 3C. Give you an example, IT employees, at the time we couldn't recruit them, and so a market was placed on them. They are union positions, but they have a market.
Okay.
So there is a way to address
All
that.
right. Thank you.
It isn't quite, I want to say something besides fair, but it isn't quite right to compare a level 4 assessor with any other employees, because
Oh, I understand
because they're
that.
state certified.
The only reason I picked it was it's a department head.
But there isn't many of them. And that's a little special case. They're a little bit hard to find.
Market.
Commissioner Henschel, then please.
Thank you. I don't doubt that there are employees that are in this organization that are doing a little more. They're worth more than they're getting. I don't doubt that for a second. However, the fact is we have budget constraints, and I was against this concept before the front page of the Record Eagle said it was cool to be against this concept. Carol in HR, for example, is moving over to the courts, and she's a wonderful person to get that advanced position, and she had, if I understood right, it was like over 100 applicants for her position. Not to say they were all qualified, but over 100 people for that one position. I think we've got a good place to work here. We're, for a lot of positions, we're not scrounging to find people. And I think the present system, if it comes to Dennis's attention that we just simply can't fill a position, then he can address that. I think that system is appropriate.
Please.
We sent out a survey to 82 other counties, and normally, if my memory serves me correctly, when you do a survey, you get roughly, if you get 10% response, it's really good. Would you say?
Yeah.
And I noticed on here, we got roughly 30% response.
We badgered them. We badgered them.
Okay. And the survey asked simply one question. Has your county conducted a wage and salary study in the last 2 years, and do you have plans to conduct one in the next couple of years? And 3 out of 82, well, no, 3 out of 32 that answered had conducted a survey. 4 intended to, but they hadn't done it yet. 25 didn't do anything. Didn't do either. So I'd say they're in the same boat as we are. They don't have the funds to fund it.
Good point.
You got a
Okay.
motion?
Yeah,
You got a motion?
yeah.
Yeah, we have a motion.
Yeah.
To,
I'd like to
would
vote
you
on
read
it.
the motion again, please?
Not to proceed due to economic conditions.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks,
you.
Jen. Thanks, Jen.
Okay, next we have a...
We do have you on
request.
salary, right?
She is.
You are on salary,
Yeah,
not
we're not
hourly.
paying her by the hour. She's gonna come in late.
What a team player.
Next, we have a request from the Traverse City Housing Commission. Commissioner Inman?
Who, me?
No, it's
Yeah.
administration.
It's a memo from you.
Page 114.
All right, hang on. Get there.
Where am I?
What did you guys make me sign?
Who's on
You
first?
wanted to appoint me to something.
Oh, that's
I'm not
correct.
sure
You're
this
you're
is
right. That's exactly right.
Exactly, something everyone's looking for, but,
Yeah. Okay. Where's the attached request?
It's right.
Oh, it's right over here. All right, okay.
Page
Next page.
150.
All right. Based on the attached request from the Traverse City Housing Commission, I am recommending that Commissioner Ross Richardson fill that position.
Excuse me. Beg your pardon.
Bless you.
You need a motion on
Yeah,
that?
do we need a motion?
I
on
so
this?
moved. I'll move on that.
Support.
Support by Commissioner Felice. Commissioner Wheelock?
I have no problem with that. The only thing that I would maybe ask is that we at least give the Land Bank Authority, or Land Bank Board, the opportunity at their meeting tomorrow to see this and have some input before we make this final decision. They are the part of our organization that handles the Housing Trust Fund and deals with the housing needs assessments and such. And, Ross would do a great job. I have no problem. And
Yeah, they were looking for
I
a
sit on the
board
Land Bank Authority, but
Okay.
I don't necessarily need the extra meeting. But the fact is that I think we should at least give them the opportunity to have input. Dean sits on that board too. Maybe we could ask his opinion about that too. Whatever you want to do. I have no problem with
Well,
approving it.
assuming we even pass it tonight, nothing happens until the end of the month anyway.
Right.
And,
Yeah. And they were looking for a commissioner.
I wasn't looking for another meeting to go to tomorrow morning, Sonny, so, But I would say, if I do get the appointment, I will, spend some time talking to the land bank folks and the housing trust fund people. Commissioner Dillon?
I'm not against the appointment per se. But what are we doing talking about building houses, even though it's grant money and it's land bank resources and whatnot? What are we doing being involved in this? Every time the government gets involved in something, and there might be some who say, well, there you go, Gilman, about the government again. But it doesn't make anything more affordable. Every time the government gets involved, prices go up, period. And I have yet to see an exception to that rule. So I just think it's a waste of valuable time and just a waste of resources, frankly.
I would point out that the ad hoc committee is very specific. It's just talking about property that's actually owned by the city or by the Traverse City Housing Commission.
It is about building.
There is a project right now, moving in that direction on the depot property by Woodmere and 8th Street. And there's also been discussion, although there's never been any action, on whether another tower could be built next to Riverview Terrace on the land they already own there. There's a parking lot problem.
Well, the quickest route, frankly, to to affordable housing is to lighten up on some of the regulations that keep people out of housing. Ridiculous square footage requirements. Other window requirements that have little to do with safety, and setbacks that don't have anything to do with the reality of where somebody's living. I mean, we've got people living on picnic benches, frankly, that could be in affordable housing by landlords who could build it cheap enough to make it worth their while to go in, whether or not they're there because of a mental condition or financial wherewithal.
I would tend to disagree. I would say the biggest problem with people finding affordable housing is that they could afford it. Actually, when I was serving on the Traverse City Planning Commission, we did take a number of steps to allow for smaller lot sizes and smaller setbacks and so on and so forth, to try to make it easier to build small, less expensive housing.
One last point, if I might, now, and I'll be
Certainly.
quiet. This property that they're talking about was originally put up for sale with the stipulation that they'd have, was it 10 affordable housing units?
I think it was, minimum of
This
10.
is it was put up for sale by the city with the stipulation that, it was put up for bid, with the stipulation that the buyer must include as a part of their plan 10 affordable housing units. Well, they took a piece of property that might be worth millions, and the top bid that was received, if I recall correctly, was $600,000 at the time. So I guess the decision was to not sell as a result of that?
Actually, it was for sale for a long time for around $600,000, because that's what the appraisal was for it. And they did interest one developer at one point, and he spent some time and energy working on it and decided that he couldn't make the numbers work. And that was, I think, 3 to 4 years ago. And since then, it's just been sitting there. I mean, anybody could have bought it for the $600 and some thousand, but didn't. It's a 2.5 acre piece of property. Commissioner Max Bauer.
As long as we're veering off the topic, the reason there's no affordable housing in the city of Traverse City is because we pay 3 times the taxes that they do in the townships and in Garfield Township. That being said, perhaps we could go back to what the motion is, which is to either confirm or recommend Commissioner Richardson to the ad hoc committee.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Hench.
I'm actually going to talk about the subject. Commissioner Richardson, the projects we're talking about, are they in your district?
One of them is, the depot property is in my district.
Okay, and is any county funding going towards these projects? Any general fund dollars?
Not that I know of right now. I don't know if,
The land bank will get involved.
I don't know if they're going to apply for any of money from the Housing Trust Fund or not. I mean, that's certainly a possibility. The depot property project is a joint development project of Homestretch and Habitat for Humanity, but they've had to involve a private developer to try to utilize some of the property to come up with enough cash to develop it actually. So it's still in a state of flux.
The project will probably use pretty much all MSHDA money that's available to this community for the next 5 years.
The appointment seems appropriate to me, it being in your district. You seem very knowledgeable about the topic.
Thank you. Commissioner Fleece.
Just to comment on Gilman's square footage issue, very valid complaint. You know, I don't think you could put a mobile home here. If I bought a lot in the city, well, say I bought the 2.5 acres, and I wanted to put mobile homes, single wides in there, no way. That's affordable housing. And the sad part is, the majority of the townships have the same regulations, and to counter the single wides, they put a deal in where you have to have a 20 by 20 area. You know, I got married almost 43 years ago, and it was right out here on Cass Road, and today I'd have to pitch a pup tent. But we lived, because I was renting it, an 8 by 30 trailer. And, you know, I don't think I'm any worse for the wear. And that was affordable housing because I could afford to pay the monthly rent on it.
Right.
So I think Gilman had a good point.
Well, I understand that, but I think we're also veering off into the, domain of all the local planning commissions.
Yeah, I think you should
And not
attend
the
the planning
county
commission
commission,
meetings
so-
and give them
I
their
tried.
request.
I'm really trying to get through this meeting, folks,
Yeah.
honestly. Any
Let's call
further
it-
discussion?
Call the question.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion
Thank you.
carries. Thank you. Fragmenties program.
Yes, we received a report from Acme Township on the use of the money that we set aside for the treatment of Phragmites on our property in Acme Township. The 3-year program is up. Acme is asking us to consider, as we take back the $1,800, to keep $500 set aside in case any more Phragmites appears on our property, and we are recommending that the rest would be returned to the county general fund.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Can they be rolled and smoked?
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And Dennis, department status on GIS?
Yes, Commissioners, what we're asking here is consideration of separating out the GIS department from the equalization department. From the
Go to planning.
From the time that I came, I didn't really understand why GIS was part of equalization, and I think, in fact, as I said in my letter, the fact that it's been part of equalization has hindered its really development and its use through the other departments because its focus has been primarily equalization. I've talked with Ernie Kachalia, the manager of the department. I've also talked with John Syke and my management staff. And we had originally said, should this be part of IT? Should this be part of planning? But in fact, we think it's probably most appropriate just to leave it separate on its own, leave it under me as a department. And so I'm recommending that we separate out GIS. This will also provide the benefit of making it easier and less complicated for the new equalization director. They will no longer have to be responsible for GIS.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Henschel.
Dennis, what are the potential costs of having this as a separate department versus a sub-department?
We don't anticipate any additional cost.
Okay, might there be, down the road, somebody's a department head instead of a sub-department head, increases in wages or anything like that?
We don't, I talked to Jen, we don't anticipate that. He's still managing 2.5 employees. That won't change, and so I don't think so.
Are you going to have to reclassify anyone as a department head?
Under current action of the county board, we don't have the ability to reclassify anybody. I think that's one thing that I'm definite about.
And Dennis, I will support this, but the additional, under the additional reasons part,
Yes.
where you talk about, discussing consolidation with the city manager for
Yes.
JS departments, I mean, to me, this is the best reason to support this.
Yeah, I'm sorry I
hope-
neglected that.
I would hope that, that would bear fruit at some point down the road.
Well, I've been meeting with the city manager about it, and he has interest in it, and so we continue to pursue that. In fact, it was 2 days after their person left that we lent Ernie to the department because they were having things that weren't working in their GIS department, and Ernie was able to spend a couple hours down there and get some things straightened around. So I think we're making good progress in that regard, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to combine those departments. And then next, I'd like to look at talking to Garfield Township because they have a separate GIS department, and I can't, the maps are the maps. I can't really see reasons why we have to have so many separate ones.
Okay.
I guess because they're kind of connected, and I probably missed the note somewhere or another, where are we at with the replacement of the equalization director?
I was going to do that under my report in just a minute.
That's fine.
Okay, everybody good? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And that brings us to the administrator's update.
This will be very short.
Thank you.
First thing is, Fred really already kind of updated you on the health building. Things are moving along. This will come under the purview of the building authority. So change orders, I just want you to be aware, change orders will go under the building authority if there are change orders. But that project is moving forward, making good progress. Everything, the permits that was initially kind of a bump, but we seem to have gotten through most of that, and everything's moving forward now. The building authority had requested some changes to the contract to reflect some county policies. Those have been changed, also to reflect what the additional cost schedules might be if there's additional work that has to be done, and identify that in the contract. That's being done as well, and you'll be seeing that down the road.
Dennis, what were the bumps with permits you're hitting?
Well, when the soil, I'll give you a couple. When the soil erosion department reviewed this, our drain commissioner, they indicated that there was going to be required either a redesign or an easement across the pond, the retention pond that we have to build. I'll be quite honest with you, couldn't get a hold of the architect at the time. We were waiting to start work. I told him, if you have to put a restriction on there, I said, could it be changed later? He said, yes. I said, put the restriction on there, issue the permit, and we'll decide afterwards whether we redesign or whether we just live with the easement. An easement didn't seem to be a big issue to me. So that was a thing that took a day and a half to get through. We were not issued a permit, a building permit or a site design permit because the Public Works Department would not grant us the approval because there was not a completion of a sewer and water, or excuse me, a sewer connection at that site, and they wanted a letter of commitment from us to work with them to do that. I sent one letter, it wasn't good enough. I had to send another letter. That had to go to Supervisor Korn, who had to approve it and authorize us to move forward.
Does anybody want to know why it costs so damn much money to build things here?
Yeah, we're not even talking about the $120,000 we have to pay for that sewer connection. We're not even to that point yet, so.
And why do you think people don't build here?
I understand why people don't build here. Actually, people build a lot here. Compared to other places, but there are very legitimate things here. The chamber has talked to me for years about this inequity in cost between township and county. It's something that we really need to address.
We need to standardize.
Dennis, I know this is kind of a down-the-road subject.
Sure.
What can we as county commissioners do to make it easier for businesses to build and expand our county?
We have no zoning and planning authority.
That's one option. Encouraging the local units to standardize their fees and their costs. And that's going to be a very difficult one because the biggest one, the hardest one to get over are these, I'm sorry, I can't remember what they're called. When you build a new building, you've got these assessment charges.
Riser fees.
The fees to connect to the sewer and water are huge, and they vary from place to place. The other thing, frankly, we could do is, we still have in this county a couple of different building inspection departments. Garfield has their own, Fife Lake has their own. there are a number of things that we could do to speed the process. About 3 years ago, some of the commissioners will remember, we went through a process with the chamber to try to consolidate the services in a way that would save time. And we worked on that for about 6 or 8 months. We made a few changes to make that better, but it's really a matter of the fact that Michigan is a home rule state, and every local unit of government can do their own thing. It's as simple as that. But I think it's something that this board should continue to strive for and work with the local communities to try to improve. And I know you'd have support from the business community, the developers, and the Chamber of Commerce.
Maybe that's something that should be in our work plan to work towards.
It would be something that I think really...
Some goal.
Yep.
Well, it definitely needs to be a subject of our joint meeting when we do the township, city, county joint meetings.
It would be an excellent topic.
Well, and I think it'd be great to bring in some representatives from the building community and the chamber, because I know they would love to work on this.
It hasn't gotten better in the last couple of years. If anything, it's gotten worse.
No.
I'll tell you, if you want to have a conversation, get the business people to come to the meeting.
Oh, that's what I meant,
That
yeah.
are trying to build.
Yep.
And I'll give you one short little tiny example. Blair Township, vacant parcel of property, already zoned commercial. All I wanted to do was set some pre-built buildings there to sell, rent to own, or sell them outright. That's all I wanted. $750 later, they put several restrictions on, and I had to hire an engineer to have a drawing. I mean, these buildings are going in and out. Sign permit. And so I was a little upset about that. Didn't say too much. Last summer, up the road, near Chum's Corners, the guy says, if he's doing it, must be some money in it. I'll do it. He went right through with the zoning administrator's approval, no meetings to attend, no nothing, and his cost would have been the sign permit. Okay? Fast forward to this fall. In fact, in October, I own some property in Inland Township, Benzie County, 3.5 acres, zone commercial, gonna do the same identical thing. I talked to Roger Williams, who's the zoning administrator there.
I'll be darned.
On my way to Pennsylvania, and Roger said, well, let me look up the zoning. He says, yep, there's not a problem there. You will need a sign permit. That's gonna cost you $30, Larry. And I said, fine, when I get back, I'll give you a call. He says, do that. I'll stop by the store, issue the permit, and collect the check. Now, that's what I call a business inducement. You know, Benzie County, Inland Township wants businesses to do business there. Grand Traverse County, and I can give you a list of business people and bring them to a meeting that
So
would let's-
I can add to your list.
So can all the rest of us.
Yep. Commissioner Fleece, since you own so much property, would you adopt me? You might, I don't have a family anymore, and I gotta have a fallback for Thanksgiving, Christmas, you know.
Wait
those
a minute, you own water, you own property on the water, so you're wealthy.
But I don't own any in Florida, so I don't.
Hawaii.
Mr. Chairman,
No,
let's
don't
move this
that.
thing.
Yes.
I'm ready.
You're done?
No.
Is there more?
Yes. I only did one little thing.
I know.
You said it was gonna be short.
Well, I thought it was, but it turned out to be longer. The last thing I wanted to tell you was on our, for the city and the county, on the dam drawdown permits, which have already been drawn down, some property owners have challenged the permit, so we will have to intervene in that as a party to that permit. The city's already done it. Al Schneider is working on ours. So I just wanted you to be aware that that's a challenge, just like the challenge we had last time we drew down the dam. So I want you to be aware we were doing that.
Okay. And the Equalization Department.
Thank you. I knew there was something you added. We will be doing interviews next week. We haven't set the times yet. We have 3 candidates who we will interview who have level 4s. And then we will also interview the current chief deputy who has a level 3 but is working towards a level 4. And when I know the times of those interviews, I will send you a notice of it, and you're welcome to come sit in on those interviews if you like.
Okay.
Where are the three that have 4s from?
One is-
Southern Michigan, or?
One is from southern Michigan, one is from Leelanau County, one is from like the Muskegon, Ludington area, I think.
Thank you.
I don't know exactly. And then, of course, Mark is here, but he lives in Bear Lake.
Right.
Okay. All right, I don't see any unfinished business or new business, which brings us to second public comment. It's time for anyone wishing to address the commission on any matter.
The Wexford County report.
Okay. Commissioner committee reports.
Just a reminder, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Chairman, that the ad hoc committee for board rules, we have a new posting at your box upstairs, that we are meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bob Cooney has provided us a layout of our current board rules, and then the committee comments that were provided at our previous meeting, so you can see the changes. And all we really want to do tomorrow is just go through those changes and make sure they're acceptable, and then get a motion out of the ad hoc committee to get them to the board for the organizational meeting in January.
You gonna move the meetings back to mornings?
Yep. No, that ain't gonna happen. Nice. All right.
Yeah, I missed my kids' Christmas program tonight to be here, okay?
Yeah,
All
well.
you that voted to have them at night. Hope you can sleep.
I'm usually in bed by 9
Your wife
o'clock.
has a
This is my
camera.
bedtime. She does.
Okay, any other committee reports?
Mr. Chair.
Gabby?
I'd just like to bring to the commission's attention a thing that I've asked Chairman Inman to put on the agenda, and it's from Phil Scott, Mayfield Planning Commission Chair. And it's regarding the Weber Well 4-8. And Mayfield Township, I'm pretty sure I told you all, passed a ordinance regulating Class 1 and Class 2. And I'll just read it just shortly here, a portion of it. As you're aware, Mayfield Township has passed an ordinance which requires all Class 1 operators to submit a special use permit should they propose using an injection well in the township for the disposal of such waste. The ordinance states that in part of the permit, application review all feasible and prudent alternatives may be considered by the township. We determined via the opinion of an environmental legal counsel that local government is not preempted by existing state law to pass an ordinance with respect to Class 1 industrial waste, as is the case for the disposal of waste from oil and gas operations, including the disposal of waste from fracking operations. And as a result of all this, well, he further states that we took this step should any industrial waste prove to be hazardous to the environment and safer disposal alternatives exist, such as the disposal at the county septic treatment facility. As a result of all of the above, I would ask that the county government is willing to consider similar action which would mandate all parties proposing to use an approved injection well to dispose of Class 1 waste in the county or within a given radius of the existing septic treatment facility in the county be subject to the county review for reasonable and prudent alternatives prior to commencing their operations. And in essence, what he's asking us to pass an ordinance that we would review it and look at the feasible and prudent things, and I think that's a heck of a good idea.
I have that copy at home. Do you have an extra copy?
Yeah, I do.
Could you give one to Dennis so he can get it on the agenda?
Yeah, and, but the reason I wanted to bring this up
We
tonight
need to
is
get
just so you'd be
Cody's.
thinking about it, so when it does come up on the agenda,
We
you're not
probably need
blindsided.
Bob Cooney's opinion on whether the county could create an ordinance of that nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I would
I
ask
think-
Dennis to
yeah.
do. Okay.
Wouldn't that be a Department of Public Works to be able to do that? I mean,
I don't
I
know.
just don't know. I
I
mean,
don't know. We need to have Cooney look
Yeah.
into that.
Dennis.
Yeah, two ways to address this. Either the board can discuss it and decide if you agree that you want it to be, an opinion to be rendered and an ordinance to be drafted, or if you want me to take it to Bob now and have him, and ask the question, can an ordinance be drafted? And then have him bring it back to you as a, when he comes up with his opinion, whichever way you want to do that.
Or what the progression would be, you
Well,
know,
he
whether
would
it
do
should
that.
be Department of Public Works doing it, and then we
would ask
approve it,
them.
and
I would
whatever, I
ask them
don't know.
I'd get him started on it.
Pardon?
Yeah.
I think we should get him started.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll give you a copy
Yeah.
tonight, Dennis. Thank you.
And I was at the Peninsula Township meeting last night. They just underwent an audit, and everything seemed to be in order for the most part, as usual. I mean, the slight things. Something along the way, though, that was kind of interesting is that as we well know, you're not supposed to spend more than you budget. It's against law. And apparently, the Lighthouse gift shop, as a part of the parks, has a certain amount budgeted, and they had a really good year. And they sold a lot of stuff. And they put a lot of money into the township coffers. So they figured, hey, we had a great year, we sold a lot of stuff, and here we have an opportunity at the end of the year to buy a bunch of stuff for the upcoming year. And they did it. But they spent more than they were budgeted for.
Oh, my.
Now, and under normal circumstances, I imagine the board would say, okay, we'll reassign, we'll adjust, we'll amend the budget to work with the parks and everything. If I'm not mistaken, that's not going to happen. And there are people who are owed money who won't get paid. And I just find it interesting. And in fact, one of the commissioners, one of the trustees, one of the trustees said, I don't care if our credit rating drops to 0. So, anyhow, thought that was something of note.
We'll remember that next time they want to build a sewage plant.
I just gave him a note that I just read in one of our magazines about going out for bid for a next generation 911 system. I don't know what that is. I mean, we've got a proposal to start looking at it, and I'm going, what's a next generation?
That's what they're talking about.
It'll bring you along with everything else, it'll bring you GPS coordinates.
Well, but I'm just, if we're looking at 911 and we're looking at proposals, then should we be looking at the Cadillac, the Chevy, or the Volkswagen, or go to the next generation? I don't know.
Trust me, we looked at the Cadillac the last time around.
Oh, I
and
know.
Got our butts kicked.
Yeah, I
so-
know we did.
Yeah, we did.
So, but I don't know what the next generation is, so.
You open the window and holler.
I don't have a committee report, but are we on notices and announcements?
Yeah,
Since that wasn't a committee report?
Well,
Okay.
the lines got a little blurred here at the end of
That's
the
fine.
meeting. Okay, well, now we're on notices and announcements. Go ahead, Christine.
I just want to say something personal. My former mother-in-law, Margaret Marks, recently passed away. And I know she was an elementary teacher in the public school system at Willow Hill for decades, sixth grade teacher.
Before my time, though.
She consistently turned out excellent students. She was a phenomenal teacher. And I know my father-in-law watches every Wednesday. So, Dad, I'm thinking of you.
Well, that's awful nice of you.
Okay, any other announcements? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to
So
adjourn.
moved, so moved.
Hey, all in favor?
Aye.
Would the board consider sending Chairman Richardson to keep on schedule?
Training session.
I would love to do that.